Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another day here at Reach and Reverie. Today we are going to take a closer look at the garden. Today is May 26th, and I do think that the garden has gotten over its transplant shock over the last few weeks. Things have finally adjusted to their permanent homes in ground. They now know what it's like to live in far western Texas with our strong winds as well as our blaring sun. So let's see what's growing on here today. This week I've really noticed that our tomatoes are looking really happy and healthy. They are nice dark green, they're standing up tall. It looks like they have really strengthened up with the winds that we've had. Just a couple days ago we had an average of about 35-mile-an-hour winds, and I was kind of worried. Things were blowing really hard, but you know what? They look so much stronger for it now, and I do think we are almost to the point that I would start pruning the tomatoes. Typically I wait until they get to about the bottom, and when I get to tying them to this trellis, as you can see, the trellis is raised about 18 inches off the ground. So once these tomatoes start getting to the point where I can start tying them to this trellis and weaving them around, at that point is usually when I'll come and start pulling suckers off. And I usually let the tomatoes have one or even maybe two leading stems, but I don't want them to be super bushy, just so that we can extend their life here with us and let them focus their production just on a couple of stems. But everything is looking great in this bed, really. We have quite a few tomatoes that their leaves are dark green and they're starting to stand tall. Some of the tomatoes that I thought had died, but I haven't pulled them out yet, are starting to come back. We have our Chihuahuan Desert Star, which is one of my favorite varieties, and he had looked just like a dead stem. You can see all of the dead, that he really struggled with getting transplanted into this garden. And you know, what are we on, week 3 now, and he has new leaves that are starting to emerge. So we're just gonna let him be. I'm gonna keep watering him, and this sucker is where he's coming out. You could see his new growth is coming out of the elbow of where 2 previous stems have died back, and his sucker is going to come and be his new leading stem. So because his root system survived, he's still going to end up being a strong plant now that he's coming back. I really like, this is a Blue Beauty. The flowers are just gorgeous. We're starting to get flowers opening up, so we will start to have tomatoes here pretty soon. I know it'll probably take another month before we start getting fruit ripening on these plants, but it's a great start and really nice to see that yellow splashes of colorful flowers coming up on these plants. My Amish paste right here is doing really good. He's got lots of flowers as well, and I can see he has some suckers that are coming out that I'll probably need to come and prune sooner rather than later. The tomatoes are doing good. Here on our second row we have our tomatillos. We've got summer squash, cucumbers, eggplant, okra, and ground cherries. Now our tomatillos have decided this week that they are gonna live and it's making me really happy. These tomatillos are just gorgeous. Any signs of nutrient deficiencies that they were showing last week have been quelled by fertilizing and rainwater, and they are just looking so robust and happy this week. We did, and Josh did pretty up this corner really well. We had a rabbit come in and dig a burrow in the corner of this bed and kind of destroyed a couple of the plants that we had over here, but we did go ahead and remove their burrow and made the bed back into a corner of a bed here. And you can see over here we have some tomatillos, just like that tomato I was showing you, where they looked like they died in transplant shock, but now that they've adjusted to their homes, they are putting off growth from a sucker. And we do think we're gonna get another healthy tomato or tomatillo plant growing out of that area. Birdhouse gourds are doing pretty good. I'm expecting that this week we may start seeing runners coming up to try to grow vertically. And oh, look at that. This is a wingless wasp. It's one of the most painful biting insects in the world. And luckily they're pretty docile and they mind their own business. So we kind of let them go. Maybe we're playing roulette here, but anytime I see one, I just let it mind its own business, and hasn't bit me or stung me yet. So live and let live, right? So anyway, he's gonna go on his way. It's a little black wasp with a hairy orange bottom. On my loofahs, they have not survived the hailstorm and the transplant shock and the rabbits nibbling on them, so they've been through quite a lot. But what I did notice, and it actually showed up on our last week's video and I didn't see it till after we were editing, was underneath this dead loofah there was another seed in the cup. And so when I transplanted this loofah out, the seed transplanted with it, and we have germination of a new loofah right there. So we might have a loofah yet. I might come back and sow another seed next to it. That way we'll have a couple growing up this trellis. We did have some rabbit damage, and that is something that we are trying to mitigate this week by adding chicken wire around the bottom perimeter of this entire gardening space. And then we'll cover it with this shade cloth, and hopefully that'll prevent the rabbits from coming in and snacking on my garden as I'm trying to grow it. But in this corner we did lose a few plants to the rabbits. I did sow new summer squash seeds, and we do have those coming up here. I believe that these are Ford Hook that I replaced with, which is just like a standard green zucchini that we have coming up here. So we've got two that have germinated. We have a jaune vert, which is a scalloped squash that's green and yellow striped. So it's gonna be like a squat patty pan squash that is gonna have green and yellow striping on it. Got wild quinoa trying to grow up. Our biggest weeds in our area have been quinoa and tumbleweeds. So they are so weedy out here. I have just been picking up them as much as I can see them. So here's a tumbleweed growing. So I need to come out here and start pulling weeds. There's a big tumbleweed trying to take root. And tumbleweeds, they are really spiky on the ends of these succulent leaves. They have real sharp ends, and so when you go to pull these, it's actually really painful. We usually try to get gloves on when I pull these, but sometimes if I don't have gloves, I'd rather pull the weed than leave it. I believe over here is Ronde Denise, which is a round pumpkin-shaped squash that we harvest young to eat as a summer squash. And then I have another Ford Hook, and I honestly don't remember what variety that is. So I think it's a Mexican gray zucchini is what that one is. I'm actually pretty sure that's what that guy is. So they're coming up here. As they grow, they should completely cover the ground in this space. Squash grow really large. They can take up like on their own like a 4 foot by 4 foot space, and I've spaced these a little bit closer together, and I think they're gonna be fine. We have more not tumbleweeds. We have more tomatillos on the other side of this trellis, and you can see again we have some that have died back that are coming back really strong. So I'm confident that the tomatillos are just going to get healthier as they grow. And then on the front side here, we have cucumbers, which you can see Rabbit got 1, 2, 3 of them. Enough was left on the plants that they are starting to come back. And then over here we have, I believe this is going to be a dragon's egg and a sakimi right here that are really strong. And he's starting to want to climb up. So as he starts putting off his little arms, I'm just going to direct him and weave him through this so that his tendrils can grab on and he can start pulling himself up the trellis. The catnip is looking super healthy over here, and we have wild thyme and blue Cereus sage as well. Our okra hasn't taken off yet, but that's okay. We're starting to see their first set of true leaves coming up. It's been kind of sitting at a standstill with their first leaves, cotyledons. You can see here their first set of leaves have just been little solar panels, but this week we are seeing true leaves start to develop. So hopefully with that rain we had, they're just gonna love it and start growing. And at the end of this trellis, my melons have been struggling due to the rabbits, but again, the rabbit was very kind enough to leave some of the melons left, and so we are getting another arm that is stretching out, and he's putting off another little arm right here that's going to start growing up this trellis. I'm really excited. We have Charente, Sweet Passion, and Heart of Gold at the end. Our ground cherries are something that I was sure was going to die this year due to transplant shock. They were hardened off, but the wind was dehydrating them, and they just did not do well when I first put them in. The same with the eggplants. They weren't doing well at all. And now, when we take a closer look at our ground cherries, you can't even tell that they had ever struggled. There's no leaves that are struggling. They're putting off lots of new growth. And here, I'm even spying a ground cherry fruit right there. You see it on the underside of that stem? Yeah, we've got ground cherries yet. That's super exciting. So sometimes you just don't give up on these guys. They may struggle, they may look ugly for a couple weeks, but just keep on watering them, keep on giving them fertilizer as recommended, the proper dose, and sit back and just wait, and they will come back. In the case of our tomatoes and our tomatillos and our ground cherries, this week they have decided that they're gonna live. Our eggplants are coming back stronger as well. So we have Listata Vicandia, and we also have Little Fingers. And the Little Fingers I thought had died. They basically lost all their leaves and shriveled up. But this week they are putting off new leaves. So I feel like if we're just patient, and as long as they don't get pests on them, we might get some Little Fingers eggplants yet. And the Listata Vicandia is another one that you can see his older leaves are kind of sick and not very healthy looking, but his new leaves are super strong, and they are both putting off some good leaves. Did come back when I saw that the Little Fingers was struggling, and I planted more eggplant seeds in this area, and I can actually see an eggplant right here that has sprouted. That itty bitty little guy. So we might have another eggplant coming up that's going to be really strong, as was the case with that tomato that grew from a really young age in the garden bed. I think that as long as we don't get a whole lot of pests, that this eggplant will also be really strong. I don't know if it's because the pests haven't found us yet, but this year so far, we've had the least amount of pest damage in the garden. I need some wood to knock on because I just said that and I don't want to jinx myself, but it's true. I feel like every year that I've gardened, I've had a lot of squash bugs, I've had a lot of flea beetles, a lot of aphids, and in this garden this year, I've had none of that. I haven't had any roly-poly damage, and I do see that there is some life in the soil. I was finding, as we were tilling up this space, I was finding worms and centipedes and little beetles, but nothing that I see as a bad bug. So that's been kind of cool. I'm sure that it's just a matter of time before they find our garden, but we are relishing in the fact that these plants are getting to establish without that extra bit of pressure, which I do feel like is a great thing, because haven't these little guys been through enough with the wind and the dust storms and the, you know, the heat of the sun that we get out here? We have extremely high UV exposure, and we do plan in the future on shade clothing this space, but that of course is not something in our means to do this year. So I'm kind of like, good luck, garden. So the fact that we don't have any pests chewing on them is just a huge blessing that we are going to love and enjoy until that is no longer the case. Over here, last week our Katrina cucumbers were not looking good at all. I was sure that they were gonna die, and coming back a week later, where is the damage? I mean, they are doing a lot better. Besides some hail damage, they have green leaves. If you go back and look at the video last week, they looked ugly and very sad, but they are starting to get a little bit more vertical. I do think that we're gonna start maybe trying to grow on the trellis here in the next week or two, and we might get some Katrina cucumbers, which is going to be great. If you missed the last video, Katrina cucumber, it's self-pollinating. It has female flowers on it instead of male and female, so every flower you get is the potential for a cucumber. And it's typically grown as a greenhouse cucumber, so it doesn't have to deal with this direct sun in most cases or weather variables, but because it's self-pollinating, it can pollinate inside of a greenhouse environment where there may be low pollinators present. I decided to grow it outside because I wanted a lot of cucumbers and I don't have a greenhouse environment to grow my plants in. But either way, survival of the fittest in this garden, and the Katrina is turning out to be stronger than I may have thought, which is exactly what we want. Our Moon and Stars watermelon, it seems like this is the week for sending out arms or runners, but the Moon and Stars watermelon is not going to disappoint. You can see here he's sending off his little arm. He's pointed in the right direction. I do expect that he's going to want to start growing vertical, as is the case with this one as well. So we have our two little watermelons right here. I'm excited, and I was telling Josh yesterday, this is one of my most anticipated plants in the garden this year. And no, it's not going to give us a lot of food. It is a medicinal herb. This is the toothache plant. And the toothache plant is something that I've really struggled to grow. I've had seeds for this toothache plant for probably the last 5 years. The first year when I got the seed pack, I grew them and I thought they were so cool. It's such a little novelty. So this toothache plant, it is really just a novelty, and it does have some medicinal properties to it, right? So it grows a yellow round flower head, kind of like a chamomile or daisy, that type of thing. And you can dry the flowers or even pick them fresh, and if you put them in your mouth and chew on it, it has numbing properties that it doesn't last a really long time, but if you have a toothache, you can chew on a flower and it will numb and relieve that toothache. And so I really wanted to bulk up on flowers, and I've been starting seeds for these, or trying to, every year since I bought the seed pack, and this is only the second year that I've had germination. So I don't know if the seed pack itself had poor germination or if it was user error. These are really small seeds that you surface sow, so they could have been washing out, but regardless, I have 2 plants right here, and I am babying this thing. When I water, I'm making sure that I am paying attention to it and hoping that it grows. Next to the toothache plant, we have our peanuts. And I've noticed that once the peanuts get started, the ants leave them alone. But as the case with, I planted about 20 peanut plants here. I have 3 that are starting, or 4 actually. I see one coming up here. But anytime that they would start to pop up through the soil, we have an ant mound over here that they have been stealing the seeds from the peanuts, tearing them into little pieces and taking them down into their colony. And so what I've noticed is if we can get them past the point where they're sprouting, once they get their first set of leaves, the ants leave them alone, which has been great. So I've just been coming out here and really making sure that the seeds are covered and not exposed, and trying to discourage the ants from eating them. Basil is something that I was so excited about this year. I put basil in a lot of cooking. It is a staple and a condiment in our diet here in our house, and I usually will dry several jars full of basil to get us through the winter months, as well as eating fresh eating. We love pesto. I love chopping it up and throwing it into everything. And this year the basil has really struggled with transplanting and establishing. It looks like I have a cinnamon basil that's doing good here. I'm going to pinch off the top to encourage it to get a little bit more bushy. Ooh, that smells so good. But then we have our lettuce leaf basil, and in trying to let it establish, I wasn't pruning off of it, and it is already sending off flowers and going to seed. So that is going to change the flavor of this, making it not as palatable. So what I might do is just let this one flower, and then I'm going to open up some space around it so that the seeds can fall, and hope that maybe next year if we get some volunteer basil here, it can be more robust and stronger in the spot. But everybody who's not flowered, I'm going to be pinching off the tops so that we can get more bushy basil in these areas so that we can be harvesting. Basil is something that as the weather warms up, it wants to produce flowers. And when it produces flowers, in a lot of cases, it gets bitter and you don't really want to eat off of it. And so the best way to prevent it from going to flowers is to prune it. And when you prune it, it's going to stimulate more leafy growth. It's going to create stronger, bushier plants. And you can be pruning these weekly or every other week, or even depending on how much rain you get and how much growth you get, even more than that. And so that is what I'm doing here with my purple opal basil and my cinnamon basils. And here we have another lettuce leaf. I'm going to pinch off the top of him. We're just going to prune some of this little basil here so we can get some more growth. Now that they are coming into this week of establishing, we want to start pruning our basil. They're not huge. We're not even going to get a whole lot off of these guys today, but I might get enough. Yeah, I can put that in a cup of iced lemonade and that would be delicious. So that's what I think I'm going to do here. We're going to pull off that quinoa underneath of him so he's not competing. And the same thing over here. And then we're going to move on with our garden tour. On the other side of our trellis here, so we had dragon's egg, Sikkim, Boston pickle. On this side, we have Armenian yard-long cucumbers and the Indian snake cucumber. And what's interesting to me is I think that the Armenian yard-long cucumber and the Indian snake cucumber are very, very similar. So I thought that they would behave very similarly. But you can very well see there's a big difference between the performance of our Armenian yard-long and our snake cucumber. Granted, we did have rabbit damage on this trellis. All of these got chomped down by rabbits, but the difference I'm seeing is that the Armenian yard-long cucumber is bouncing back really well to that pest pressure, and the snake cucumbers They are coming back, but you can see much more slowly. I'm hoping that once we get this fenced off from the rabbits, we will have uninterrupted growth here. But the Armenian yardlong is again showing me that he does not disappoint. We're gonna skip the peppers for now and go back to the next cucumber bed. We have lemon cukes and our cucamelons. Cucamelon is up to the first thing on the trellis, so he's our first climber this year. Cucamelons typically are slow to start and then they take off, and so I'm really hoping that he's gonna just take off here. On our bell peppers, I see what's not a bell pepper. Ooh, I'm gonna try not to step on you, little guy. You do your thing, I'll do my thing. Keep all the bad bugs away. Maybe that's why we don't have aphids and squash bugs and flea beetles, because I keep the wingless wasps. I'm gonna go with that. That'll make me feel better about letting them live when they have so much potential to bite. But really, I see them all over our property and they are not aggressive. So we're just gonna live and let live here. But what I came here to say was, this is not a pepper. This is a quinoa plant right here that's just getting huge. So we're gonna pull him out, pull this out, pull that out, and Habanada, good luck, you're welcome. On our pepper bed, we are seeing a lot more growth this week. Some of our peppers, like I believe that's the Cubanelle right here, is really starting to go vertical this week. We have a Shotashero that's also getting a lot taller. And then we did get hail damage. I can see on these pepper plants quite a bit of hail damage. I think they suffered more than a lot of the rest of the garden, which is surprising. I usually see most damage on squash and cucumbers. But it looks like the peppers didn't like the hail more than anything this week. Some of the things we have growing here, if you've missed our last tours, is we have blot peppers on the end, and those are really dark and robust. We have a couple of rows of different bell pepper varieties, including things like canary bell, lilac bell, mini bell, albino bell, and grand bell mix. We have brown and black jalapeno plants growing, shishitos. I have one wee little Pekin pepper, which I'm not sure is going to take off or not. Habanadas, cubanelles. We have peperoncinis, Brazilian starfish, cayennes, buena mulatas, which is like a purple cayenne pepper. We have corbachi, Shotashero, and ahi kashusha. So quite a bit of peppers growing in here. You may have noticed from the peppers I listed off, these are primarily sweet peppers. I like a little bit of spice. I live in Texas, so I'm no stranger to spicy foods, but I really love snacking on peppers. I really love chopping them up, throwing them into dishes, and enjoying the other flavor components of a dish. So most of the peppers we have here are going to be sweet peppers. And then finally, down here on the end, we have our corn bed with our squash growing. Right now, it is the Two Sisters garden bed because I haven't added pole beans yet, but we have corn growing as well as our winter squash. This is going to include things like our pumpkins, our butternut squashes, acorn squash, and the like. I have on the end tromboncino squash. I had to succession sow another round because I had a couple more plants over here that the rabbits ate. So we have a tromboncino there and another one coming up over here. I also planted Seminole pumpkins, and we have a couple acorn squashes that are coming up as well, just to mitigate rabbit damage. I also have cheese squash, and the cheese squash are starting to send off their runners this week. You can see that arm stretching out with hope for his future. Another cheese squash here. And then over here, I think performing the best out of anything in the garden so far. This is our Blue Hubbard squashes. You can see him with his flowers. He's got really large leaves. He's sending out his arm as well. So they're going to start spreading out and ground covering this area, which should help prevent weeds, and they'll grow around the corn that's coming up. This Blue Hubbard as well is not going to disappoint. Look at how big his leaves are, and he's growing really well also. And on the end, this is a Jarrahdale pumpkin. And he is so beautiful. I love the Jarrahdale pumpkin. Got a little bit of hail damage, but the leaves are still really healthy and beautiful on this guy. In between the cheese squashes, I also did plant a Lady Godiva, which grows pepitas, or the seeds inside the pumpkin do not have that outer coating, so they're wholeless pumpkin seeds that will come from Lady Godiva. And the corn is growing up really nicely. I did have to come back and plant more corn a couple weeks ago. You can see the initial corn here is much taller. We even have some beginnings of what looks like it's going to want to tassel here soon. And then the young corn, let's get a closer look this way. The young corn is also coming up, so I do see a lot of green in this bed, and I'm hopeful that we'll have some success with the corn this year. Here's another look. And even just since I've been out here, our evening primrose has opened up. It was tightly closed when I came out here this morning, and this here is the evening primrose, which is a Texas native. A great pollinator. And I'm just gonna, if I see seeds off of this, I'm gonna probably grab the seeds and just sprinkle it throughout the garden, as it has shallow roots, it's not invasive, and it would be great to grow underneath other vegetables in the garden, other plants. So that, my friends, is the week 3 garden tour. I'm so happy. This week is the first week that I come out here and I see the plants thriving, not just surviving, but thriving. So hopefully, if we don't get any major weather events, it might be up from here. And if I can get the rabbits to stay out. The last thing that I wanted to show you is outside of the garden. We have our cottage garden that's doing pretty good, but we added a couple new things to our cottage garden this week. I added a mountain laurel that we started from seed, which is a Texas native. The flowers smell like grape soda, and he's itty bitty. He's like that tall, but I'm hopeful that I can come back and look back on this video years from now and see a tree here that was once this wee little thing. We also started desert willow, another native out here that grows all around wild in the surrounding areas here in the Chihuahuan Desert. And he did struggle a little bit when I first planted him out here, so I covered him with some shade cloth. I am gonna probably pull that off this week. Since he is a native, he should be fine. He's over his transplant shock, but this is our wee desert willow right here. This desert willow is another one that I really hope is going to get really tall and flower and attract pollinators. My hope in having these trees growing here, as well as the mesquites that we already have, is that they can provide a shade canopy in our cottage garden where we may be able to grow things that otherwise would struggle out here in the Chihuahuan Desert heat in a cottage garden. Well, that's it for today's video. If you like this video, don't forget to give us a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. That way you can stay up to date with everything going on here at Reach and Reverie. And stay tuned. You don't want to miss what's next on the next week's garden tour or the other projects we have going on here at Reach and Reverie. Thank you for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one. Are you waiting on me in the shade? Did you give up on me? I'm done. I'm done. Okay, we can go inside now. You were waiting in the shade for me. She puts up with a lot here. All right, let's go. You ready to go inside? Wait for me.